he pleaded not guilty. Not guilty to driving straight through the gates of Beyonce and Jay-Z's East Hampton estate at full speed. Wait, hold on. Rewind that sentence in your head one more time, because I promise you the world is not ready for what is about to unravel in the next 10 minutes. A man rammed a green Subaru through the reinforced iron gates of the most watched couple on planet Earth, Beyonce and Jay-Z, smashed through the perimeter like a wrecking ball on wheels, was pulled out of the vehicle by private security, was arrested on the spot, was charged with felony criminal mischief and misdemeanor criminal trespass. And this same man, walked into a courtroom this week, looked the judge dead in the eye, and pleaded not guilty. Not guilty. Folks, I have watched a lot of celebrity crime storylines in my life, but the second I read this court filing, my jaw hit the floor, and by the time you finish this video, you are going to understand why this Beyonce and Jay-Z situation is about to explode into something none of us saw coming. And that is not even the biggest bombshell in today's video, because in the second half, I am going to walk you through an even more devastating court battle involving one of the most beloved actors of our generation, Chadwick Boseman, and a widow accused of hiding millions from his grieving parents. So sit with this for a second, hit that subscribe button while it is still free, and let me walk you through it, piece by piece, receipt by receipt. Let me set the scene, because the details on this Beyonce and Jay-Z case are frankly cinematic. Early Wednesday morning, in the sleepy village of East Hampton, a 63-year-old man from the Bronx by the name of Jonathan Webster gets into a green Subaru. Nobody knows exactly what was going through his mind that morning. Nobody. According to detectives, he drives from the Bronx all the way out to the Hamptons, then heads out to Montauk, drives back through the village, stops at the head of the main beach, sits there staring at the ocean, drives back out to Montauk again, comes back to the beach, and then loops around into the Georgia Pond area, which happens to be one of the most exclusive, gated, ultra-private enclaves in the entire United States. And that is where things stop being a strange morning drive and start turning into a full-blown criminal case, because sitting inside that Georgia Pond enclave is the East Hampton estate of Beyonce and Jay-Z. Investigators say Webster then pointed that green Subaru at the couple's reinforced entrance gate, floored the accelerator, and slammed straight into the metal at what officers described as a high rate of speed. The gate, a security-grade barrier designed specifically to stop vehicular intrusion at a compound owned by two of the most protected celebrities on the planet, gave way. Not fully, but enough. Webster's vehicle punched through the entrance, kept going onto the property itself, and was only stopped when the car came to rest inside the estate perimeter. Surveillance cameras monitored around the clock by Beyonce and Jay-Z's private security team captured every second of it. Every single second. Now, before I go any further, this is where the story starts to twist. Because private security intercepted him, they pulled him out of the car without incident. They held him. They called East Hampton Village Police. Officers arrived, arrested him, hauled him in, charged him with felony criminal mischief and misdemeanor criminal trespass, and dragged him into court for arraignment. And that is where the plot took the sharpest possible turn. Because Jonathan Webster stood up in court and told the judge, not guilty. Folks, I am going to be honest with you. When I first read that, I actually laughed. Not because any of this is funny, because it absolutely is not, but because how in the world do you plead not guilty to something that was captured on surveillance video, witnessed by multiple estate security personnel, and confirmed by responding officers who literally pulled you out of the car with your hands on the wheel? How does that plea even leave your mouth? What exactly is the defense here? That wasn't me. That was a different Bronx grandfather driving a different green Subaru through Beyonce's gate at 90 miles per hour. I need someone to explain this to me because I cannot make it make sense. But here is where this Beyonce and Jay-Z situation gets even more tangled. The judge did not just take the not guilty plea and send him home. The judge slapped Webster with a restraining order, a full, legally binding, ironclad restraining order, barring him from having any contact whatsoever with Beyonce, from having any contact whatsoever with Jay-Z, and from stepping anywhere near that East Hampton residence for as long as this criminal case is pending. Read that back to yourself. A restraining order, meaning that behind the scenes, the legal team representing Beyonce and Jay-Z is treating this as an ongoing, active threat. Not a random, confused senior citizen who wandered off. Not a fluke. A threat. And this is where the East Hampton Star reported something that stopped me cold. Detective Sonia Jennifer Dunton told the paper that Webster seemed confused and was not making threats. She described his entire morning, the Montauk Loop, the beach staring, the Georgia Pond detour, like a man who was clearly not operating on all cylinders. But then how do you square confused with the fact that this man drove full speed at a gate that had to be visibly closed, visibly reinforced, and visibly marked as private property? Confusion does not explain velocity. Confusion does not explain aiming. Confusion does not slam a car through a solid metal barrier hard enough to cause at least $1,500 in structural damage. Because let me remind you, that $1,500 figure is the specific damage number that anchors the entire felony charge against him. So which is it? Was Webster a lost man who accidentally aimed a Subaru at America's most famous couple's front door? Or was there something else, something premeditated, something we do not yet have the receipts for, driving him toward that gate? And by the way, where were Beyonce and Jay-Z during all of this? Not there. Not commenting. Not issuing statements. In fact, the couple was recently spotted at the World Cup looking untouchable, letting their attorneys and their security personnel handle every ounce of the fallout while they continue their public life as if nothing ever happened. Which, if you know anything about how Beyonce and Jay-Z operate, is exactly the playbook. They do not react. They dispatch. They let their people close ranks, and they let the courts do the talking. But trust me on this one, when it involves the estate of Beyonce and Jay-Z, the legal machinery does not stop. It grinds. It grinds slowly and it grinds thoroughly, and by the time it is finished, Webster is going to know exactly what it means to drive a car through the wrong gate in the wrong village on the wrong morning. The next court appearance in this case has been scheduled for July 29th, and mark my words, that hearing is going to reveal whether Webster's legal team is preparing an actual defense or whether this not guilty plea was purely procedural, a placeholder before an eventual plea bargain. Either way, the story is nowhere near over. Now, if I had to speculate, and speculation is all any of us have right now because Beyonce and Jay-Z have said absolutely nothing publicly, I would say Webster's attorneys are running one of two plays. Play number one, mental state defense. His lawyers argue he was not in a rational cognitive state that morning. Diminished capacity, confusion, possibly a medical episode. That would explain why the detective on record said he seemed confused and was not making threats. Play number two, mistaken target defense. Meaning Webster's legal team argues he did not intend to hit Beyonce and Jay-Z's property specifically, that he was trying to reach a different house, made a wrong turn, floored the accelerator in a panic, and the gate happened to be the one that got hit. Either one is a stretch. Either one requires the jury to believe that a green Subaru accelerated on its own into the most fortified private entrance in the Hamptons by pure geographic coincidence. Good luck with that. And this is where I need to remind you of something important, because this is not the first time Beyonce and Jay-Z's security perimeter has been tested. This couple has been the target of stalkers, superfans, obsessed correspondents, and yes, even people we would call unhinged. And every single time, the Carter legal apparatus has come down like a hammer. Beyonce and Jay-Z are not the kind of celebrities who let a home breach slide with a slap on the wrist. They do not tolerate it. They do not forgive it. They pursue it. And every legal analyst who has looked at this Webster case has already flagged the same thing. The felony criminal mischief charge alone carries a potential ceiling of up to 7 years in state prison. 7 years. For a green Subaru and a gate. Now, brace yourselves, because everything I just told you about Beyonce and Jay-Z is only half of today's video, and the second half is arguably even more heartbreaking, even more infuriating, and even more likely to generate a courtroom war that drags on for years. Because as we speak, a devastating legal fight has erupted around the estate of the late Chadwick Boseman, the man who gave us Chala, who gave us Jackie Robinson, who gave us Thurgood Marshall, who gave us a version of black cinematic royalty that will never be replicated. And at the center of this new legal storm is his widow, Taylor Simone Ledward Boseman. Sit with this for a second, because it is a lot. Chadwick Boseman's older brothers, Kevin Boseman and Derrick Boseman, have officially filed explosive court documents in a Los Angeles courtroom, and they are asking the judge to do something extraordinary. They want Taylor Simone Ledward stripped of her authority as administrator of the estate. stripped of her control over the assets, stripped of the very power the court initially granted her when Chadwick passed 6 years ago. And the reason they are asking for this? They are accusing Taylor of hiding millions of dollars from Chadwick's own grieving parents. Read that sentence back. His parents, his mother, his father, the two people who raised him, who supported his career, who watched their son become an icon, and then watched him die of colon cancer 6 years ago. Those two people, according to these filings, are being left broke while millions in assets allegedly sit locked inside the estate under Taylor's sole control. Let me back up, because the sequence of events here matters. When Chadwick passed away in 2020, he tragically died without a legal will in place. 6 years ago, that shocked the world, because how does one of the most successful young actors of his generation that gave her legal authority to manage every asset, every royalty, every intellectual property, right connected to his name? Fair enough, she was his wife. But then, back in 2022, a judge issued a formal order. That order divided the remaining assets of the estate directly down the middle. 50% to Taylor. 50% to be split between Chadwick's mother and his father. That was the ruling. That was the court's final word. And that ruling, according to the brothers, is exactly what Taylor has spent the last 4 years quietly ignoring. Kevin and Derrick's court filing lays it out in explosive, blistering detail. According to the documents, Taylor Simone Ledward is still, nearly 4 years after the 2022 ruling, tightly controlling the entire estate under her sole authority. She has, they allege, failed to distribute any of the assets legally owed to Chadwick's parents. And what she is allegedly withholding is not chump change. We are talking about, and please absorb these numbers, over $3 million in bank accounts. Movie residuals from a career that included Black Panther, one of the highest-grossing films in Marvel history. Crucial life insurance policies, intellectual property rights, name, image, and likeness rights that continue to generate income 6 years after his passing. All of it. Every asset connected to Chadwick's name and legacy. Now let that sink in. Because Chadwick Boseman was not a mid-tier working actor. Chadwick Boseman was Chala. The Black Panther franchise alone has generated billions of dollars globally, and Chadwick's estate is entitled to a share of ongoing residual and merchandise revenue for years to come. His likeness, his face, his voice, his silhouette, is still one of the most commercially valuable images in Marvel's entire catalog. The intellectual property alone is a lifelong income stream. And according to Kevin and Derrick, none of the half that belongs to his mother and father has been properly distributed to them. The brothers are now asking the court to do 4 specific things. 1. Hold Taylor Simone Ledward in contempt of court for allegedly failing to comply with the binding 2022 order. 2. Force a complete forensic accounting of every asset connected to Chadwick's estate. 3. Strip Taylor of her administrative powers immediately. And 4. Block her from executing any future deals, meaning no new Marvel merchandise agreements, no new likeness licensing, no new commercial arrangements involving Chadwick's name until this dispute is fully resolved. That last one is the nuclear option. Blocking future deals could freeze the estate's revenue-generating engine, which would be devastating for every party involved, including Taylor herself. Now, I want to be extremely clear here. Everything Kevin and Derrick are alleging is exactly that, an allegation. Taylor has not been convicted of anything. She has not been formally sanctioned. She has the right to respond, and her legal team will absolutely fight back. But the specificity of this filing is what makes it so damaging. The brothers are not making vague accusations. They are naming account balances. They are naming asset categories. They are pointing at a specific court order and saying she ignored it. That is not gossip. That is a paper trail with a deadline on it. And this is where it gets even more painful. Because Chadwick's parents, his elderly mother and father, are, according to these filings, watching their son's fortune be held out of their reach while they themselves are allegedly struggling financially. Think about that. 2 elderly parents who raised the man who became one of the most iconic actors in cinema history. 2 parents who, according to the sworn statements in this filing, are alleged to be watching millions in bank accounts sit inaccessible while they, quote, go broke. That is not a legal abstraction. That is a family in genuine emotional and financial distress. And I have to say something here, because it needs to be said. Everybody, I do not care how much money you have. how young you are, how healthy you are, how many properties you own or do not own. Everybody needs to write a will. Everybody. This is exactly the kind of tragedy that a 2-page document could have prevented. If Chadwick Boseman had left a formal will laying out the exact division of his estate, none of this legal warfare would be happening. His mother and father would not be in a courtroom fighting for their half. His brothers would not be filing contempt motions. His widow would not be facing accusations of hoarding. The entire family, a family that lost a son, a brother, a husband to cancer 6 years ago, could have grieved in peace instead of grieving in litigation. Write the will. Sign the will. Update the will. Do not leave your loved ones to fight each other in probate court. Because trust me on this one, when families end up in legal warfare over inheritance, the wound never fully closes. Kevin and Derrick are not going to back down. They filed this case together, both brothers, as a unified front, which tells you everything you need to know about how deep the rift already runs. When both siblings show up at the courthouse in matching legal filings, it means the internal conversations have failed. It means the phone calls have failed. It means the mediation has failed. It means the family has run out of quiet options, and the only remaining path is a public courtroom. And a public courtroom is exactly where celebrities' most sordid family disputes get dragged into daylight. I have a feeling this Chadwick Boseman estate battle is going to spill wide open in ways nobody is prepared for. There will be depositions. There will be forensic accountants combing through every bank account. There will be journalists filing motions to unseal documents. There will be leaks. There will be counterclaims. There will very possibly be a second phase where Taylor's legal team fires back with their own accusations against the brothers. That is standard defensive playbook. And through all of it, Chadwick's parents are the ones we should be watching. Because they are the reason this filing exists. Not fame. Not money. A grieving mother and father who feel that 6 years after losing their son, they are still being kept from what a court told them was theirs. So where does all of this leave us? 2 massive celebrity legal storylines. Both dropped in the same news cycle. Both destined to dominate the entertainment press for weeks. Beyonce and Jay-Z with a man pleading not guilty to ramming their estate gate at high speed with the next court date already on the calendar. And the Chadwick Boseman estate with a widow now facing potential removal from administrative control and accusations of hiding millions from grieving parents. 2 families. 2 courtrooms. 2 impossible situations. And 2 verdicts we will not know for months, maybe years. Which one is going to explode first? Which one is going to reveal the deeper story we do not yet see? Personally, I think the Beyonce and Jay-Z case is going to move faster because criminal proceedings run on tighter calendars. But I think the Chadwick Boseman estate case is going to be the more emotionally devastating story of the year. Because a family in mourning turning on itself in open court is one of the most gutting things you can watch, and I do not envy any of the parties involved. Alright, before I let you go, I need to hear from you. Tell me where you land on all of this in the comments. Do you think Jonathan Webster genuinely believes he is innocent? Or is his not guilty plea a legal chess move before an eventual plea deal on the Beyonce and Jay-Z Gate case? Do you believe Webster was truly confused that morning? Or do you think there is a premeditated angle here we are not seeing yet? And on the Chadwick Boseman story, do you think Taylor Simone Ledward should be stripped as administrator of the estate? Or do you think Kevin and Derrick are overreaching and need to take this out of the courtroom? Drop your answers down below. I read the comments. I read every single one. And your take on this genuinely shapes the follow-up video I am going to make next week when the July 29th Beyonce and Jay-Z court hearing happens. If this breakdown gave you value, hit that thumbs up. It is 1 click, it takes 2 seconds, and it tells the algorithm to push this story out to more people who need to hear about it. If you are new around here, welcome. Hit subscribe so you do not miss the next chapter, because I promise you both of these stories are going to keep unraveling in ways we cannot predict yet. I will see you on the next one.